November 28th, 1944. 20:48 hours. 100 miles south of Honshu, Japan. The Pacific is a black, empty mirror. Inside the cramped control room of the U.S. submarine Archerfish, the air is stale and thick with despair. On the radar screen, a young operator, Victor Jim Fraza, stares at the green sweep. He's bored. They've been on patrol for 32 days. They've found nothing. Then, a contact. A single, faint blip appears at the edge of the screen, 12 nautical miles away. Fraza leans in, adjusts the gain. The blip is huge. He calls over his officer. "Sir, I think the radar's busted. It's painting a target, but it's the size of a goddamned island." The captain, Commander Joseph Enright, is summoned. He's a man haunted by failure, on the verge of being relieved of command. He looks at the screen. The radar isn't broken. The sonar operator, his headphones pressed tight, goes pale. "Captain, I have screw beats. Multiple. At least 4 destroyers. But there's something else. Something beneath them. A low, deep thrum. The biggest thing I've ever heard." Enright raises his periscope into the blackness. He sees nothing but the silhouettes of the escorts. He doesn't know what it is. No one in the U.S. Navy knows what it is. No intelligence report has prepared them for it. What Commander Enright and the crew of the Archerfish are tracking is the most powerful, most secret, and most expensive weapon ever built by the Empire of Japan. It is a 72,000-ton ghost, a super battleship converted into an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Its name is Shinano. She has been at sea for less than 10 hours, and in 12 hours, the Archerfish is going to send her to the bottom of the ocean. To understand the Shinano, you have to understand Midway. In 6 minutes, the backbone of the Japanese Navy, 4 of its best aircraft carriers, were turned into burning wreckage by American dive bombers. The war had changed. The era of the battleship was over. The era of the carrier had begun. The Japanese High Command was in a panic. They needed carriers. They needed them now. And they had a secret. In a locked, guarded dry dock at Kure, hidden from the world, sat the hull of the 3rd Yamato-class super battleship. The Yamato and her sister, Musashi, were the largest battleships ever built. Monsters of steel, armed with 18-inch guns. They were the pride of the Empire. This 3rd ship was even bigger. But after Midway, a battleship was a liability. So, in 1942, a new order was given. Stop construction. Convert her. Turn the world's biggest battleship into the world's biggest aircraft carrier. This was Shinano. And she was not a normal carrier. She was a fortress. The Japanese, scarred by Midway, were obsessed with unsinkable. Shinano wasn't just built on a Yamato hull. She kept the Yamato armor. This is a 72,000-ton ship. For perspective, the biggest American carriers, the Essex-class, were 27,000 tons. Shinano was almost 3 times the size. She had a 16-inch armored belt at the waterline, just like the battleship. Her flight deck was not wood. It was 9 inches of solid armor-plated steel, designed to withstand a 1,000-pound bomb and laugh. Her hull was a maze of 1,300 watertight compartments. She was designed to take multiple torpedo hits, shrug them off, and continue launching her 100-plus aircraft. She was the ultimate weapon, a hybrid of brute force and air power. The secrecy was absolute. It was the most closely guarded secret of the war. The 20,000 workers at the Curie yard were virtual prisoners. They were forbidden from leaving, forbidden from talking. The dry dock itself was hidden. They built a massive bamboo screen, a Curie screen, around the entire 500-meter dock so that nothing could be seen from the hills above. The name Shinano was never spoken. In documents, she was simply Construction Number 110. She was a ghost even before she sailed. She was Japan's last best hope, an invincible, unsinkable fortress that would turn the tide of the war. At least, that was the legend. The legend was a lie. By late 1944, the war was collapsing. American B-29s flying from the Marianas were now within striking distance of the Curie dockyard. A single bomb could destroy Japan's $10 billion secret. A new order was given: rush her, finish her, get her out. Get her to the safe port of Matsuyama on the other side of the bay, where she could be fitted out for her final combat trials. Shinano was commissioned on November 19, 1944. She was not finished. It wasn't just a few things left to do. She was a construction site. The watertight doors, the 1,300 compartments that made her unsinkable, hundreds of them were not yet installed. The ones that were had no gaskets. They didn't seal. The pumps, the massive ship-wide drainage system, not connected. The main pumps had no power. Instead, the crew had portable, hand-cranked pumps. The systems, the firefighting systems, the ventilation systems, the internal communications, not working. And then there was the crew. Over 2,000 men. Most of them were not sailors. They were factory workers, merchant marines, and raw recruits who had been on a warship for days. They had never drilled. They had never practiced firefighting. They had no idea how to run the ship. And they definitely never practiced damage control. But Shinano had a captain, Toshio Abe, a veteran, and Abe was a victim of the legend. He looked at his 16-inch armor belt and believed the hype. He believed his ship was unsinkable. He knew she was flawed. He knew the crew was green, but the armor would protect him. On November 28th, at 1800 hours, under the cover of darkness, Shinano slipped out of Curie Harbor for her first and last voyage. Abe was nervous. He ordered a full zigzag pattern to throw off any American submarines. He had a full escort of 3 of Japan's best destroyers, Isokaze, Yukikaze, and Hamakaze. His hubris was his fatal flaw. He believed he was the hunter. He had no idea he was the prey. Let's go back to the Archerfish. Let's talk about Commander Joseph Joe Enright. Enright was a failure. This was his first command. His previous patrols were disasters. He had missed easy targets. He had shown a lack of aggression. His crew had lost faith in him. They had a nickname for him, Dry Joe, because his patrols were always dry of kills. This patrol was his last chance. Admiral Lockwood, the head of the submarine fleet, had personally told him, "Enright, if you come back empty-handed this time, you're done. You're getting a desk." So for 32 days, Enright has been hunting, desperate for a target, a freighter, a tanker, anything. He has found nothing. He is 100 miles from the coast of Japan, in the most dangerous waters on earth, a man at the end of his rope. And then the island appears on his radar. Enright knows what it isn't, a merchant ship. It's moving too fast, 20 knots, and it has escorts. This is a high-value warship. This is the target, the one that could save his career. He gives the order, "Battle stations, surface, full speed, we're going after her." The Shinano is faster than the Archerfish. The submarine, even on the surface running its big diesel engines, can only make 19 knots. Shinano is cruising at 20. The chase is impossible. The Shinano is pulling away. Enright is watching his career, his redemption, sail over the horizon. For 3 hours they chase. The blip gets smaller, and then the impossible happens. Aboard the Shinano, Captain Abe makes his scheduled zigzag maneuver. At 22:45, he orders a 40-degree turn to port. In the Archerfish control room, the radar operator shouts, "Captain, the target, it's turning toward us." Abe's evasive maneuver has accidentally turned his $10 billion warship directly into the path of the one submarine that was hunting him. The chase is back on, but Enright is still slower. He needs a miracle. And at 3 o'clock, he gets it. 300 hours, November 29th. Enright is at the periscope. The Shinano is still too far away, still pulling ahead. And then one of the escorts, the destroyer Isokaze, spots the Archerfish. The Isokaze charges, 6,000 yards and closing, firing its guns. This is it. The end. Enright has 2 choices. 1. Crash dive, flee and live. 2. Stay and be destroyed. And then, a miracle. The radio operator shouts, "Captain, the target, the big one, it's flashing a signal light." Aboard the Shinano, Captain Abe sees his destroyer, Isokaze, peel off to hunt the submarine. Abe panics. He's not afraid of the submarine. He's afraid of losing his escort. He's afraid the Isokaze will get left behind. He makes the single most fatal mistake of the entire war. He flashes his signal lamp, breaking radio silence, and orders the Isokaze to stop hunting the submarine and return to formation. Enright cannot believe his eyes. The killer has been called off. But it gets better. When Captain Abe ordered the Isokaze to return, he made another zigzag turn to port to give the destroyer time to catch up. This second turn exposed the Shinano's entire 800-foot-long, 16-inch armored broadside to the Archerfish, at a perfect 90-degree firing angle at a range of only 1,400 yards. Enright doesn't hesitate. This is his moment. Fire 1, fire 2, fire 3. He doesn't just fire one. He empties his bow. He launches a spread of 6 torpedoes. Down the throat! On the bridge of the Shinano, they see the white phosphor trails of the torpedoes when it's far too late. The lookouts scream. Abe orders a hard turn. 3:17 a.m., the first torpedo hits. 3:18 a.m., the second and third and fourth hit. 4 torpedoes slam into the side of the unsinkable supercarrier. The explosions are massive. They throw a column of water and steel 100 feet into the air. But here's the thing. On the bridge of the Shinano, they're not scared. They're annoyed. 4 torpedoes against a Yamato-class hull? It's a joke, a mosquito bite. Captain Abe is so confident in his 16-inch armor, so certain of his invincibility, that he ignores the damage. He ignores the reports of flooding. He assumes it's minor. He gives the order, maintain speed, 18 knots, continue to Matsuyama. He is still trying to outrun a submarine that has already fired its weapons and is running for its life. It's 3:20 a.m. The Shinano is already a dead ship. They just don't know it yet.
The unsinkable ship was sinking. Here is the truth. The American torpedoes were set to run shallow. They weren't designed to hit the 16-inch armor belt. They were designed to run under it. The 4 torpedoes hit the unarmored, thinnest part of the hull. They tore a 200-foot gash in the side of the ship. And now, every fatal flaw, every shortcut, every bit of hubris came due. The water was gushing in by the 1,000 tons, and Captain Abe was still sailing at 18 knots. That speed was acting like a giant fire hose, forcing millions of gallons of water deeper and deeper into the ship. The green crew panicked. They ran to the watertight doors, the ones with no gaskets, and watched as the water just poured right through the seals. They ran to the compartments where the doors hadn't even been installed and found 30-foot waterfalls cascading into the heart of the ship. They tried to use the hand pumps. It was like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. By 4 a.m., the ship was listing, 10 degrees to starboard. On the bridge, Captain Abe finally realized the truth. He ordered the ship to stop. It was too late. It took 7 hours. 7 hours for the invincible ship to die. It was a slow, agonizing, public execution. The sun came up. The crew, 2,100 men, gathered on the high side of the flight deck. They watched in stunned silence as the ocean crept up to meet them. They tried to tow her. The lines snapped. At 10:18 a.m., the ship's list reached 45 degrees. The men began to slide. At 10:57 a.m., November 29, 1944, the Shinano, the largest, most powerful, most expensive warship ever built by Japan, rolled over and sank. She took 1,435 men, including her captain, with her. Miles away, in the Archerfish, Joe Enright and his crew listened. They heard the end, the sounds of a massive ship imploding as it was crushed by the pressure of the deep. Enright had no idea what he had done. He wrote in his log, "Sank a large Shokaku-class carrier." He claimed 28,000 tons. It wasn't until after the war that the U.S. Navy cross-referenced Japanese records and realized that Dry Joe Enright, on his last chance patrol, had single-handedly found and sunk a 72,000-ton super battleship. It was, and still is, the largest warship ever sunk by a submarine. This is the ultimate story of hubris. The misconception, Shinano was an unsinkable fortress. The truth, Shinano was a lie, a hollow, unfinished, rush-to-sea shell, crewed by rookies and led by a captain who believed his own propaganda. She was the greatest secret weapon of the war, and she was destroyed on her very first night by a single desperate man who was just trying to save his job.